Her diabetic son was rushed to the ER, unaware her ex-billionaire CEO husband was in same building. Is he mine? The words hung in the sterile hospital air like a death sentence. Natalie's hands trembled as she stood between her unconscious 8-year-old son and the man who had destroyed her 7 years ago. "Don't," her voice cracked. "Don't you dare ask me that question." But Dominic Castellano wasn't backing down. His eyes moved from her face to the small boy in the hospital bed, doing calculations that would shatter everything. "Natalie, how old is he?" "Get out." "How old is Oliver?" 8. He just turned 8 last month." The admission felt like betrayal. Dominic staggered backward, gripping the chair for support. His face had gone completely white. "You were pregnant. When I left, you were pregnant, and you never told me." "I didn't know." Natalie's tears came now, hot and angry. "Not until 2 weeks after you walked out. 2 weeks after you told me your company was more important than our marriage, that I was a distraction you couldn't afford. I tried to reach you." Her voice rose, years of pain pouring out. "I called. I emailed. I came to your office, but your assistant said you'd left instructions not to be disturbed, that you were in Singapore closing your precious deal." Dominic's silence was answer enough. "I raised him alone." Natalie moved closer to her son's bed, as if shielding him from this conversation. "Through the pregnancy, the birth, the sleepless nights. When he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 5 years old, I learned to count carbs and calculate insulin doses. I learned to wake up every 2 hours to check his blood sugar, terrified I'd find him dead. I did it all, Dominic, without you." The heart monitor beeped steadily in the background. Oliver stirred but didn't wake. "Why didn't you try harder?" Dominic's voice was barely a whisper. Natalie laughed, a broken sound that held no humor. "Because you made it clear you didn't want me. Why would you want a child? I wasn't going to force you into fatherhood. I wasn't going to let my son feel like a burden to a man who'd already decided we weren't worth his time. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Just 12 hours earlier. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Hospital emergency room flickered overhead as Natalie Brooks cradled her 8-year-old son's hand. She watched the paramedics wheel him through the automatic doors with a terror that threatened to split her chest open. Oliver's small body looked even more fragile against the white sheets. His lips were pale, his breathing was shallow. This was every mother's worst nightmare, but for Natalie, it carried the extra weight of guilt. She'd missed the signs. "Blood sugar's at 42 and dropping," one paramedic called out to the triage nurse. His voice was urgent but controlled. Professional. Natalie's heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. She'd found Oliver collapsed in his bedroom 20 minutes ago. His continuous glucose monitor had been screaming warnings she'd somehow missed while finishing a double shift from home. The laptop had been open on her kitchen table. Patient charts had demanded her attention, and her son had been dying in the next room. Type 1 diabetes had been their constant companion for 3 years now. 3 years of vigilance, 3 years of carb counting and insulin calculations, and middle-of-the-night blood sugar checks. 3 years of managing a disease that could kill her child in his sleep. She'd never seen him this bad, never seen his numbers drop this fast. "Ma'am, we need his medical history." A nurse appeared beside her with a clipboard. Her scrubs were covered in cheerful cartoon characters that felt obscene in this moment. Natalie's hands trembled as she recited information she knew by heart. Oliver James Brooks, 8 years old, date of birth March 15th, type 1 diabetes diagnosed at age 5. He uses an insulin pump, Humalog insulin. His basal rate is 0.7 units per hour. He has no other medical conditions, no allergies, no previous hospitalizations except for his initial diagnosis. The nurse's pen moved efficiently across the paper. Her expression was kind but detached. She'd seen this before. For her, this was just another shift. For Natalie, this was everything. "Emergency contacts?" the nurse asked. Natalie felt the familiar weight of doing this alone. No partner to call, no one to share the terror that was currently shredding her composure. "Just me. I'm his only parent." "Father?" "Not in the picture." The nurse nodded without judgment and made a note. "We're taking him back now. You can come with us." "We're taking him to pediatric ICU," a doctor informed her as they moved through the corridor. He was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes that had seen too much. "His ketone levels are dangerously high. We need to stabilize him immediately. He's in diabetic ketoacidosis." Natalie nodded, unable to form words. DKA. The complication every type 1 parent feared. When blood sugar got too high for too long, the body started breaking down fat for energy, producing ketones that turned the blood acidic. It could cause brain swelling, organ failure, death. She followed the gurney down the corridor. Her worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor. She was still wearing her home scrubs, the comfortable clothes she wore while doing medical coding from her apartment. There had been no time to change, no time to grab anything except her purse and Oliver's emergency kit. She didn't notice the expensive leather shoes that passed her going the opposite direction. Didn't see the tall figure in the tailored suit freeze mid-step, phone pressed to his ear, staring after her with an expression of complete shock. She didn't see Dominic Castellano, her ex-husband, watching her disappear around the corner with a child he didn't know existed. 4 floors above the pediatric wing, Dominic stood in the hospital's executive conference room. He was surrounded by architects, administrators, and his own team of corporate advisors. The pharmaceutical magnate had arrived to finalize his company's $50 million donation for the new research wing. It was a project that would cement his legacy and, more importantly, assuage the guilt that had gnawed at him for 7 years, the guilt of walking away from the only woman he'd ever loved. "Mr. Castellano, if you'll look at the architectural renderings on page 12, the hospital's CEO, a silver-haired man named Dr. Morrison, gestured to the presentation screen. "We've incorporated your suggestions about the laboratory spaces." Dominic stared at the screen without seeing it. His mind was 4 floors below, trapped in the past, drowning in questions. That had been Natalie. He was certain of it. Same dark hair, same way of moving, same profile that he'd memorized during their 3 years of marriage. But she'd looked so different, exhausted, terrified, older in a way that had nothing to do with years and everything to do with hardship. What was she doing here? Was she sick? The thought sent ice through his veins. "Mr. Castellano?" Dr. Morrison's voice held a note of concern now. "Are you all right?" "I apologize." Dominic forced himself to focus. "Could you repeat that?" The meeting dragged on for another excruciating hour. Dominic signed documents he barely read. He shook hands with people whose names he immediately forgot. He smiled for a photographer capturing the momentous occasion of his generous donation. $50 million, pocket change for a man worth $8 billion, a desperate attempt to fill a hole that no amount of money could touch. But his mind was 4 floors below, with Natalie, with questions that had no answers. "The construction will begin in the spring," Dr. Morrison was saying. "We anticipate completion within 18 months. The Castellano Research Wing will be a beacon of hope for patients across the country." Dominic nodded at the appropriate moments. He made comments that sounded intelligent. He played the role of the benevolent billionaire philanthropist, but inside, he was fracturing. The moment the meeting concluded, Dominic made his excuses. "Thank you all for your time. I look forward to seeing the project come to fruition." "Sir, you have the board dinner in 2 hours. His assistant, Patricia, hurried after him as he headed for the elevator. She was efficient, loyal, and had been with him for 6 years. She knew his schedule better than he did. "Cancel it." "But Mr. Castellano, the entire board is expecting you. We've had this scheduled for months." "Cancel everything for tonight, Patricia." His tone left no room for argument. Patricia's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. "Of course, sir. Should I reschedule?" "I'll let you know." The elevator doors closed, and Dominic sagged against the wall. His reflection stared back at him from the polished metal. Tailored Tom Ford suit, Rolex watch, Italian leather shoes that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He looked like success. He felt like a fraud. He found himself wandering the hospital corridors like a man possessed. It was absurd. He was Dominic Castellano, CEO of Castellano Pharmaceuticals, one of the most powerful men in the industry. He commanded empires. He closed billion-dollar deals. He didn't wander hospital hallways searching for ghosts. But here he was. The pediatric floor was quieter than the main hospital. The walls were decorated with colorful murals of animals and rainbows. cheerful attempts to make a terrifying place less scary for children. A nurse's station sat at the center of the floor, and Dominic approached with a confidence he didn't feel. "Can I help you?" A young nurse looked up with a professional smile. Her name tag read, Jennifer. "I'm looking for someone." Dominic stopped. What could he say? "I'm looking for my ex-wife who I abandoned 7 years ago. I think I saw her and I need to know if she's dying." "Are you family of a patient?" Jennifer asked. Dominic hesitated. Then he saw her. Natalie sat in a small waiting area down the hall. She was hunched forward with her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Her dark hair, once glossy and carefully styled, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore scrubs, medical scrubs, not the designer clothes he remembered. The transformation was startling. This was what 7 years had done to her. 7 years of living without him. 7 years that had clearly been hard. His feet carried him forward before his mind could intervene. Natalie. She looked up and the world tilted on its axis. Her brown eyes, those eyes that had once looked at him with such love, widened in disbelief. Color drained from her already pale face. For a moment she looked like she might faint. "Dominic?" His name came out as barely a whisper, like she couldn't believe he was real. "I saw you downstairs. He struggled for words, something that never happened to him in boardrooms. "What are you doing here?" Natalie stood abruptly, swaying slightly. Dominic instinctively reached out to steady her, but she stepped back. She put distance between them like he was dangerous, like he might hurt her. He had hurt her. That was why he'd left. "My son." Her voice cracked on the words. "Oliver. He's in crisis, diabetic ketoacidosis." The words hit Dominic like physical blows. Son. She had a son. Of course she did. 7 years was a lifetime. She'd moved on, she'd remarried, she'd built a family. Everything he'd told himself he wanted for her when he'd walked away. Everything he'd convinced himself was the right thing. So why did it feel like someone had reached into his chest and ripped out his heart? "I'm sorry." He managed to keep his voice steady. "Is he going to be okay?" "They don't know yet." Natalie wrapped her arms around herself. It was a gesture he remembered from their marriage. She did that when she was overwhelmed, when she was trying to hold herself together. His blood sugar dropped so fast. "I should have noticed sooner. I was working from home, finishing charts, and I didn't check on him and—" "Hey!" Dominic took a careful step closer. "This isn't your fault." She laughed, a broken sound that held no humor. "You don't know anything about it. About us. You left, remember?" The accusation hung between them, sharp and true, a knife that found its mark. "I remember," Dominic said quietly. A doctor emerged from one of the rooms. He was the same young doctor from earlier, still looking tired. Natalie rushed toward him immediately. Dominic hung back, an outsider to her crisis, but unable to leave. "Mrs. Brooks." The doctor's expression was cautiously optimistic. "Oliver's responding to treatment. We've got his glucose levels stabilizing. The insulin drip is working. He's asking for you." Relief transformed Natalie's face. The terror that had been etched into every line softened. "Can I see him?" "Of course. Room 412. But Mrs. Brooks, we need to talk about what happened. This is his second episode this year. We may need to adjust his treatment plan." "I know. I'll do whatever it takes." Natalie was already moving toward the room. She hurried down the hall without a backward glance at Dominic. He stood frozen, processing what he'd just learned. Mrs. Brooks. She'd kept her maiden name, or taken it back after her second marriage ended. The doctor had mentioned a second episode. This child, this Oliver, had a chronic condition. Diabetes. Type 1. Based on what he'd heard, Dominic's mind raced with calculations he didn't want to make. How old was the boy? The pediatric wing treated children up to 18, so that didn't narrow it down. But something about the way Natalie had looked, the desperation in her voice, suggested a young child. Elementary school age, maybe. He should leave. He had no right to be here, no right to intrude on her life after what he'd done. But his feet wouldn't move. Inside room 412, Natalie sat beside Oliver's bed. She held his small hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. The IV drip provided a steady rhythm. Beep, 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 the sound of her son's life continuing. His color was already improving. The grayish pallor was fading, replaced by a healthier pink. She brushed damp hair from his forehead, whispering apologies he couldn't hear. "I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy should have been paying attention. I'm so sorry." Oliver's eyes fluttered open. "Mom, I'm here." She smiled through her tears. "I'm right here." "What happened?" His voice was weak, confused. "Your blood sugar dropped, sweetheart. You went into DKA, but you're okay now. The doctors fixed you up." "I don't remember." Oliver's brow furrowed. "I was playing in my room, and then everything got fuzzy." "I know, but you're safe now. That's all that matters." "I'm sorry I scared you." Natalie's heart broke. "Oh, baby, this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. But I should have felt it, should have checked my monitor." "You're 8 years old. You're not supposed to have to think about that every second. That's my job." She kissed his forehead. "And I'm going to do better. I promise." The door opened softly. Natalie expected another nurse. Instead, Dominic stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. He looked uncertain, vulnerable. Nothing like the confident man who'd walked out of her life 7 years ago. "I thought you might need this," he said hesitantly. Natalie should have told him to leave, should have protected herself and her son from the man who'd shattered her world. But exhaustion and shock had stripped away her defenses. And honestly, she was so tired of doing everything alone. "Thank you," she heard herself say. Dominic entered quietly, setting 1 cup on the table beside her. His eyes moved to the sleeping child, and Natalie watched something flicker across his face, an emotion she couldn't quite name. Curiosity? Sadness? Regret? "He looks peaceful now," Dominic offered. "He's strong, stronger than me most days." Natalie wrapped her hands around the warm cup. The heat felt good against her cold fingers. "He was diagnosed 3 years ago. We've managed it well, but tonight—" Her voice broke. "You're doing this alone?" The question was careful, probing. Natalie met his gaze directly. "Yes." "The father isn't in the picture." She cut him off, her tone making it clear the subject was closed. Dominic nodded slowly. He settled into the chair across from her. They sat in silence. The beeping monitors filled the space between them. 7 years of silence, 7 years of separate lives, and now this strange, surreal reunion in a hospital room. "I'm here for a hospital donation," Dominic finally said. $50 million for a new research wing. The signing was today." "How philanthropic of you." Natalie's words carried an edge. She couldn't help it. "Natalie, don't." She held up a hand. "Whatever you're about to say, don't. You don't get to walk back into my life in a hospital room and explain yourself." "I wasn't going to explain. There's no explanation that would be enough." Dominic leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I was going to say I'm sorry for everything." Natalie laughed bitterly. 7 years later, and that's what you lead with? What else is there?" "Nothing," she said it quietly. "There's nothing else, Dominic. You made your choice." Oliver stirred, a small sound escaping his lips. Both adults fell silent, watching as the boy settled back into sleep. His chest rose and fell steadily. The insulin drip continued its work. Crisis averted, for now. "How old is he?" Dominic asked. His voice sounded strange, tight. 8. He just turned 8 last month." Dominic went very still. Natalie could see him doing the math. Could see the exact moment realization crashed over him like a wave. His face went white. His hands gripped the arms of the chair. "Natalie." His voice was hoarse. "Is he—" "Don't!" She stood abruptly. Coffee sloshed over the rim of her cup, burning her hand. She didn't care. "Don't you dare ask me that question." But Dominic was standing too. He was staring at Oliver with new eyes. The boy had dark hair like Natalie, but his features, the shape of his nose, the set of his jaw, even in sleep, the way his hair fell across his forehead. "He's mine," Dominic breathed. "Oliver is my son." Natalie's silence was answer enough. Dominic staggered backward, gripping the chair for support. His legs wouldn't hold him. "You were pregnant. When I left, you were pregnant." "I didn't know." Natalie's tears came now, hot and angry. Years of pain pouring out. "Not until 2 weeks after you walked out. 2 weeks after you told me your company was more important than our marriage, that you needed to focus on the merger, that I was a distraction you couldn't afford." Each word was a knife, and Dominic felt every cut. "I tried to tell you. Natalie's voice broke. I called, I emailed, I even came to your office, but your assistant said you'd left instructions not to be disturbed, that you were in Singapore closing the deal. I never got, Dominic started, but stopped. That was a lie. He had gotten her messages. He'd seen her name on his phone and deleted the voicemails without listening. Had instructed Patricia to handle any contact from his ex-wife. He'd been so focused on proving himself, on building his empire, on showing the board that he could close the merger without distractions. He'd shut out everything else, including this. I raised him alone, Natalie said. She sank back into her chair like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore either. Through the pregnancy, the birth, the sleepless nights. When he was diagnosed with diabetes at 5, I learned to count carbs and calculate insulin doses. I learned to wake up every 2 hours to check his blood sugar, terrified I'd find him dead. I did it all, Dominic. Without you. Why didn't you? He couldn't finish the question. Why didn't I try harder? Natalie's laugh was hollow. Because you made it clear you didn't want me. Why would you want a child? I wasn't going to force you into fatherhood. I wasn't going to let my son feel like a burden to a man who'd already decided we weren't worth his time. Dominic collapsed into the chair. He put his head in his hands. I was a coward. Yes, Natalie agreed simply. You were. I thought I was doing the right thing. The merger was falling apart. The board wanted me out. I was working 20-hour days, and you deserved better than the shell of a man I'd become. So you decided for both of us. Natalie's voice was quiet but fierce. You decided I couldn't handle being married to someone under pressure. You decided to walk away instead of letting me choose to stay. I was wrong. You were selfish. The words hung between them, brutal and true. Oliver stirred again. This time his eyes fluttered open. Mom? Natalie was at his side instantly, all her attention focused on her son. I'm here, baby. How do you feel? Tired. Thirsty. Oliver's gaze drifted to Dominic. Curiosity replaced confusion. Who's that? Natalie froze. Dominic stood slowly, approaching the bed with careful steps. He looked at Natalie, silently asking permission. She gave the smallest nod. I'm Dominic, an old friend of your mom's. Oliver studied him with intelligent eyes. Natalie's eyes, Dominic realized, not his. You look fancy. Despite everything, Dominic smiled. I suppose I do. Are you a doctor? No, I run a company that makes medicine. Cool. Oliver's attention span was clearly limited by exhaustion. Mom, can I have water? Natalie helped him drink. She adjusted his pillows. She checked his IV line with practiced efficiency. Dominic watched, seeing her competence, her tenderness, her strength. This was the woman he'd left. The woman who'd built a life without him. The woman who'd raised his son alone. His son. He had a son. A nurse entered to check Oliver's vitals. Dominic stepped into the hallway. He leaned against the wall. His legs were suddenly unsteady. His hands were shaking. He pressed them against his thighs to make them stop. He had a son with diabetes, a son who'd just been in crisis, a son who didn't know him, a son who'd lived 8 years without a father because Dominic had been too much of a coward to answer his phone. Natalie emerged a few minutes later. She pulled the door partially closed behind her. He's falling back asleep, she said. The doctor says if he stays stable through the night, we can go home tomorrow. Natalie, I need you to leave. Her voice was firm but not unkind. I can't process this right now. My son almost died tonight, and I need to focus on him, not on you and your guilt. I want to help. You can't. Please. Dominic's voice cracked. Let me do something, anything. Natalie studied him. Exhaustion was evident in every line of her face. The hospital bills, his insulin, the continuous glucose monitor, the pump supplies. It's expensive. Insurance covers some, but not all. I work double shifts to make ends meet, and sometimes it's still not enough. I'll take care of it, Dominic said immediately. All of it, and I'll set up a trust fund. I don't want your money, Dominic. But you just said. I said it's expensive. I didn't say I wanted you to swoop in and play hero. Natalie's eyes flashed. You don't get to buy your way into his life. Then what do I get? Dominic asked desperately. Tell me what I can do. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, she finally admitted. I don't know if there's anything you can do. You missed 8 years. You can't get those back. I know. Do you? She stepped closer. Her voice dropped. Do you know what it's like to hold your newborn son and wonder why his father didn't want him? To explain to a 5-year-old why he doesn't have a daddy like the other kids? To sit in doctors' offices alone, making medical decisions and praying you're doing the right thing? Each question was a blow, and Dominic took them all. No, he whispered. I don't know, but I want to learn. I want to be there now if you'll let me. Why? Natalie demanded. Why now? Because you happened to see me in a hospital? Because you found out you have a son? Where was this desire 7 years ago when I needed you? I was a fool 7 years ago. And what are you now? Dominic met her gaze. A man who's spent 7 years building an empire and realizing it means nothing. A man who's been searching for something to fill the emptiness and never finding it. A man who just discovered he has a son and would give up everything, the company, the money, all of it, for a chance to know him. Natalie's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Pretty words, Dominic. You always were good with words. They're not just words. Let me prove it. How? However you need me to. Dominic took a careful step closer. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm asking for a chance to be a father to Oliver, to support you both, to show up consistently for as long as it takes. Natalie wrapped her arms around herself, that protective gesture again. She was trying to hold herself together. He doesn't know, she said quietly. About you. I told him his father wasn't able to be part of our lives, that it wasn't his fault, that he was loved and wanted, even if it was just by me. You did the right thing. Did I? Natalie looked up at him. Or did I deprive him of a father because I was hurt and angry? You protected him, Dominic said firmly. From rejection, from disappointment, you gave him stability and love. That's more than I would have given him back then. And now? Now I want to try, if you'll let me. Natalie was quiet for so long that Dominic thought she might refuse. Then, finally, she nodded. Slowly, she said. We do this slowly. You don't get to storm into his life and disrupt everything. You earn his trust. You prove you're reliable. And if at any point I think you're going to hurt him, you're gone. Understood? Understood. I mean it, Dominic. He's been through enough. The diabetes is hard on him. He has to be so careful, so aware of his body all the time. He's braver than any adult I know, but he's still a little boy. I won't let you break his heart. I won't, Dominic promised. I swear to you, Natalie, I won't. She searched his face, looking for sincerity or deception. Whatever she found must have satisfied her, because she nodded again. There's a parent room down the hall. I'm staying here tonight to monitor him. You should go home. Can I come back tomorrow, when he's being discharged? Natalie hesitated, then agreed. Tomorrow afternoon. I'll text you when we're ready to leave. Dominic pulled out his phone. I don't have your number anymore. Something flickered across her face. Hurt, maybe, or just acknowledgement of how completely they'd severed ties. She recited her number, and he saved it immediately. Thank you, he said, for giving me this chance. Natalie didn't respond. She simply turned and went back into Oliver's room, closing the door softly behind her. Dominic stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at that closed door. Behind it was his son. A boy he'd never met, never held, never tucked into bed. A boy who was fighting a chronic illness without knowing his father existed. The weight of his choices crashed over him. 7 years of missed moments, 7 years of Natalie struggling alone, 7 years of Oliver growing up without him. First steps he didn't see, first words he didn't hear, first day of school he didn't photograph, birthdays, holidays, the diabetes diagnosis, all of it without him. He couldn't change the past. But maybe if he fought hard enough, he could be part of the future. Dominic walked to the elevator in a daze. The hospital felt different now. The fluorescent lights seemed brighter, the antiseptic smell stronger, everything was sharper, more real. He'd walked in here this morning as a successful businessman making a charitable donation. He was leaving as a father who'd abandoned his child without knowing it. In the parking garage, he sat in his Bentley without starting the engine. His hands gripped the steering wheel. He stared at nothing. He had a son. The words kept repeating in his mind like a mantra, like if he thought them enough times they'd start to feel real. He pulled out his phone and opened a search engine. Type 1 diabetes in children. He read article after article, medical journals, parent forums, support groups. The more he read, the more terrified he became. This wasn't like type 2 diabetes. This wasn't about diet and exercise. This was an autoimmune disease. Oliver's pancreas didn't produce insulin. Without insulin, his body couldn't process glucose. Too much sugar in the blood could cause ketoacidosis, like tonight. Too little could cause seizures, coma, death. Every single day was a balancing act. Every meal required calculations. Every activity affected blood sugar. Exercise could drop it. Stress could raise it. Illness threw everything off. And at night, while Oliver slept, his blood sugar could silently drop to dangerous levels. Natalie had been managing this alone for 3 years. Dominic felt sick. He drove home on autopilot. His penthouse apartment overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, expensive art on the walls. It was beautiful and cold and empty. He'd bought it 2 years ago after selling the condo he'd shared with Natalie. He told himself he needed a fresh start. Really, he just needed to erase the memories. Now those memories came flooding back. Natalie laughing in the kitchen, dancing to music while she cooked. Natalie curled up on the couch with a book, her feet tucked under her. Natalie in his arms whispering that she loved him, that they'd figure everything out together. And he'd walked away from all of it. Dominic poured himself a scotch, then another. Then a third. The alcohol didn't help. Nothing helped. He pulled up his phone and looked at Natalie's contact. Just her name and number. No photo, no history. 7 years of silence contained in 10 digits. He wanted to text her, to say something. But what? Sorry I abandoned you while you were pregnant. Sorry I missed our son's entire life. Sorry I'm a coward who chose a company over a family. He set the phone down. Tomorrow. He'd see them tomorrow, and he'd start making up for 7 years of absence. Somehow. The next afternoon, Dominic arrived at the hospital with his heart in his throat. He'd barely slept. The few hours he'd managed had been filled with nightmares. Oliver's face, Natalie's tears, the beeping of hospital monitors. He'd spent the morning researching more about type 1 diabetes. He'd watched videos about insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitors. He'd read about carb counting and correction factors and basal rates. He felt overwhelmed and underprepared, but he was here. He found Natalie in Oliver's room, packing up their belongings. Oliver sat on the bed, looking much better than the night before. Color had returned to his cheeks. His eyes were bright and alert. He was playing a game on a tablet. "Hey," Dominic said from the doorway. Oliver looked up. Recognition dawned on his face. "You're the medicine guy from last night." "That's right." Dominic entered slowly. "How are you feeling?" "Better. Mom says I can go home if I promise to check my blood sugar every hour." "Every 2 hours," Natalie corrected with a smile, "and only for today." "Still annoying," Oliver grumbled, but without real heat. Dominic watched their easy interaction, the shorthand of a mother and son who'd been a team for years. He was an outsider here. The realization stung. "I brought something," he said, pulling a wrapped package from his bag. "If it's okay with your mom." Natalie raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Oliver tore into the wrapping with the enthusiasm of an 8-year-old. He revealed a book about space exploration. His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "This is so cool! Mom, look, it has pictures from the Mars rover." "What do you say?" Natalie prompted gently. "Thank you." Oliver beamed at Dominic. The smile transformed his face. "I love space. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up." "That's an amazing goal," Dominic said. His throat felt tight. "You'll have to tell me more about it sometime." "Do you like space too?" "I do. I actually invested in a private space company a few years ago." Oliver's jaw dropped. "Really? That's so cool. Can you tell me about it?" Natalie watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. Dominic caught her eye, silently asking if this was okay. She gave a small nod. For the next 20 minutes, Dominic and Oliver talked about space exploration, rocket technology, the possibility of Mars colonization. The boy was bright, curious, enthusiastic. He asked intelligent questions. He made connections between concepts. He was clearly gifted. Dominic felt something unfamiliar blooming in his chest. Pride, wonder, love for this child he'd just met. "Did you know that Mars has ice caps just like Earth?" Oliver was saying. "And scientists think there might have been water there a long time ago, which means there could have been life." "I did know that," Dominic said. "What do you think? Do you believe there was life on Mars?" "Maybe. I think the universe is too big for Earth to be the only planet with life. That would be kind of lonely, don't you think?" Dominic's breath caught. "Yes, that would be very lonely." When the discharge nurse arrived with paperwork, Natalie stepped aside to handle the details. Dominic helped Oliver gather his things. He carefully packed the new book in the boy's backpack. "Are you going to visit us again?" Oliver asked suddenly. Dominic glanced at Natalie, who was watching them. "Would you like me to?" "Yeah, you're cool, and you know about space." "Then I'd love to visit if your mom says it's okay." Oliver turned to Natalie with pleading eyes. "Mom, can Dominic visit us?" She smiled, ruffling his hair. "We'll see, baby. Let's get you home first." The drive to Natalie's apartment was quiet. Dominic followed in his own car, giving them space but staying close. He watched Natalie's old Honda Civic navigate through traffic. The car had to be at least 10 years old. It needed a new paint job. He could see rust on the bumper. When they arrived, he was struck by the modest building. It was a far cry from the luxury condo they'd shared during their marriage. The neighborhood was safe but working class. The building was well maintained but clearly old. Natalie's apartment was on the 3rd floor. No elevator. She helped Oliver up the stairs slowly, letting him set the pace. Dominic followed, carrying their bags. The apartment was small but warm, maybe 800 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a combined living room and kitchen, but it was filled with Oliver's artwork, his photos, evidence of a life lived fully despite limited means. Medical supplies were neatly organized on a kitchen counter: insulin pens, test strips, glucose tablets, ketone meters, alcohol wipes, a sharps container, evidence of the daily battle they fought. "I should let you rest," Dominic said, hovering near the door. "Actually," Natalie said, surprising him, "could you stay for a bit? I need to run to the pharmacy for Oliver's prescription refill, and I don't want to drag him out again." "Of course." Dominic tried to keep the eagerness from his voice. "Whatever you need." Natalie gave Oliver instructions about resting and checking his blood sugar. She grabbed her purse. At the door, she paused. "Dominic, thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." After she left, Dominic sat awkwardly on the couch. Oliver settled in with his new book. The boy read silently for a while. Dominic watched him, memorizing every detail. The way he bit his lip when he was concentrating, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the way his fingers traced the pictures. This was his son. "Can I ask you something?" Oliver looked up suddenly. "Anything." "Why did you come to the hospital? Mom said you were there for business, but you stayed with us." Dominic chose his words carefully. "Your mom and I knew each other a long time ago. We were friends. When I saw her, I wanted to make sure she was okay." "Were you more than friends?" The question caught Dominic off guard. "Why do you ask?" Oliver shrugged. "The way she looked at you. She doesn't look at people like that usually." This child was far too perceptive. "We were married once," Dominic admitted, "but that was a long time ago." "What happened?" "I made mistakes. Big ones. I wasn't the person I should have been." Oliver considered this. "Mom says everyone makes mistakes. She says what matters is if you try to fix them. Your mom's very wise. She's the best." Oliver's voice was fierce with loyalty. "She takes care of me even when it's hard, even when I'm sick and she's tired. She never gives up." "I can see that," Dominic said softly. "You're lucky to have her." "I know." Oliver returned to his book. The conversation was apparently over. Dominic sat in the quiet apartment, watching his son read. This should have been his life. These should have been his memories, the daily routines. The casual conversations, the comfortable silences. He'd thrown it all away for what? A successful merger, a bigger company, money he didn't need? His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "The board is asking about tonight's dinner." "Should I tell them you're ill?" He typed back. "Tell them I had a family emergency. Reschedule for next week. A family emergency." It was true in a way. His entire life had just been turned upside down. When Natalie returned 30 minutes later, she found them in the same positions. Oliver reading, Dominic watching him with an expression of such longing that it made her chest ache. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect," Dominic said, standing. "We had a good talk." "He told me you were married before," Oliver piped up, "to each other." Natalie's eyes widened. "Oliver." "It's okay," Dominic said quickly. He asked. I answered honestly. Natalie set down the pharmacy bag. She studied them both. "What else did you talk about?" "Space," Oliver said, "and mistakes, and how you're the best mom ever." Despite the tension, Natalie smiled. "Well, that last part is definitely true." "Absolutely," Dominic agreed. Their eyes met over Oliver's head. Something passed between them, not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. "I should go," Dominic said. "Let you both rest." "Okay." Natalie walked him to the door. In the hallway, she spoke quietly. "Thank you for staying with him, and for being honest." "Always," Dominic promised. "From now on, always honest." "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you really leave 7 years ago? The truth." Dominic leaned against the wall. He gathered his thoughts. This was the conversation he'd been dreading, the one he owed her. "I was terrified," he said finally. "The company was everything I'd worked for, and it was falling apart. The merger was our last chance, and I was drowning in pressure. You were so supportive, so understanding, and I felt like I was failing you every day. I convinced myself you'd be better off without me, that I was dragging you down. So you left." "So I left. I told myself it was noble, that I was setting you free. Really, I was just a coward who couldn't handle the pressure of being a husband and a CEO. You could have talked to me." "I know, I should have. Instead, I made the worst decision of my life and spent 7 years trying to fill the hole it left." Natalie was quiet for a moment. "Did you? Fill the hole?" "No, nothing came close." Dominic met her gaze. "I built an empire, Natalie. I'm worth billions. I have houses, cars, influence, and I've been miserable every single day." "Good," she said, but without real venom. "You deserve to be miserable." "I did, I do. But Oliver doesn't deserve to miss out on having a father because of my anger." Natalie crossed her arms. "So we're going to try this, slowly, carefully. You're going to show up consistently and prove you're not going anywhere." "I will." "And Dominic? If you hurt him, if you disappear or let him down, I will make sure you regret it for the rest of your life." "I believe you." Dominic smiled slightly. "And I wouldn't expect anything less." Natalie nodded, satisfied. "Dinner, Friday night, here, 6 p.m. Don't be late." "I'll be early." "Don't be that either, just be on time." As Dominic drove home, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 7 years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, he could fix what he'd broken. It wouldn't be easy. Natalie's trust was shattered. Oliver didn't even know he was his father yet. There would be difficult conversations, painful revelations, no guarantee of forgiveness. But for the first time since he'd walked away from his marriage, Dominic felt like he was moving toward something instead of running away. He had a son, a brilliant, brave, wonderful son who loved space and defended his mother fiercely. And he had a chance. Slim, fragile, but real. A chance to be the father Oliver deserved. Dominic wasn't going to waste it. The week leading up to Friday dinner felt like the longest of Dominic's life. He threw himself into research with the same intensity he'd once reserved for corporate acquisitions. But instead of financial reports and market analyses, he was studying carbohydrate counts and insulin-to-carb ratios. He joined online support groups for parents of type 1 diabetic children. He read their stories, their fears, their victories. He learned about the 3 a.m. blood sugar checks, the constant vigilance, the way a simple cold could throw everything into chaos, the terror of sending your child to school and trusting others to keep them alive. Natalie had been living this reality for 3 years. Alone. On Wednesday, he found himself in a bookstore, standing in the parenting section. He felt ridiculous. A 42-year-old billionaire who didn't know the first thing about being a father. He bought 6 books. Parenting books. Books about type 1 diabetes. Books about talking to children. Books about being a good dad. The cashier smiled at him. "Someone's doing their homework." I have a lot of catching up to do, Dominic said. That was the understatement of the century. On Thursday, he canceled 3 meetings and spent the afternoon shopping. What did you bring to dinner with your ex-wife and the son you just discovered? Flowers seemed wrong, too romantic. Wine seemed inappropriate with a child present. He settled on ingredients. If Natalie was cooking, he could at least contribute. He also bought a telescope, a good one, professional grade. It cost $8,000. Then he realized that was insane. You didn't show up to a casual dinner with an $8,000 gift. He returned it and bought a smaller one. Still nice, but not obscene. $500, more reasonable. Then he worried that even that was too much, that he was trying to buy Oliver's affection, that Natalie would be angry. He kept the telescope but left it in his car. He'd feel out the situation first. Friday arrived with agonizing slowness. Dominic left work at 4, ignoring Patricia's surprised expression. He never left early. Never. "Is everything all right, sir?" she asked. "Everything's fine. I have plans tonight." "Plans?" Patricia looked genuinely shocked. "You haven't had personal plans in years." "Well, I do now. Hold all my calls this weekend." "The entire weekend?" "The entire weekend." He drove to Natalie's apartment, arriving at exactly 6 p.m. Not early, not late. He'd circled the block twice to get the timing right. He stood outside her door, holding a bag of groceries and feeling more nervous than he'd felt before any board meeting. This was his son on the other side of that door. His son who didn't know he was his father, his son who he was meeting for only the second time. He knocked. Oliver opened the door, grinning. "You came?" "Of course I came," Dominic smiled back. "I promised, didn't I?" "Mom's making spaghetti. Do you like spaghetti?" "I love spaghetti." "Me too, but I have to measure everything because of the carbs. Mom says pasta is tricky." Dominic followed Oliver inside. Natalie was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of sauce. She'd changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a simple blue sweater. Her hair was down. She looked beautiful. Tired, but beautiful. "Hi," she said. "You're right on time. I'm a quick learner." "We'll see about that," but she was smiling. Dominic set the grocery bag on the counter. "I brought some things. I wasn't sure what you needed, so I got a variety." Natalie looked in the bag. Fresh bread, a salad, ingredients for garlic bread, sparkling cider. "This is perfect, thank you. Can I help with anything?" "You can set the table." Oliver, show Dominic where the plates are. For the next 30 minutes, Dominic helped prepare dinner. It was strange and wonderful, domestic in a way his life hadn't been in years. Oliver chattered about school, about his friends, about a science project he was working on. Natalie interjected with corrections and questions. They moved around each other with practiced ease. Dominic felt like he was watching a dance he didn't know the steps to. When they sat down to eat, Natalie pulled out Oliver's insulin pump. "Okay, buddy. Let's calculate." "Do we have to?" Oliver whined. "You know we do. How much spaghetti are you having?" "This much." Oliver indicated his plate. Natalie measured it carefully. "That's about 1 cup, so 45 grams of carbs, plus the sauce, that's another 10. And you're having bread?" "Can I?" "1 slice, that's 15 grams, so we're at 70 total. Your ratio is 1 unit per 15 grams, so you need 4.7 units. We'll round to 5. She programmed the pump with practiced efficiency. Oliver barely seemed to notice. This was routine for them. Dominic watched, fascinated and horrified. Every single meal required this level of calculation. Every snack, every treat. One mistake could be dangerous. "Does it hurt?" he asked. "The insulin pump?" Oliver shook his head. "Not really. Sometimes when Mom changes the site, it stings a little. But it's better than shots. I used to have to do shots 4 times a day." "He was so brave," Natalie said softly. 5 years old and letting me give him injections without crying." "I cried sometimes," Oliver admitted, "but Mom said it was okay to cry, that it didn't mean I wasn't brave." "Your mom is right. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what you have to do even when you are scared." Oliver considered this. "Are you ever scared?" "All the time," Dominic said honestly. "Of what?" "Lots of things. Making mistakes, letting people down, not being good enough." "But you're rich and successful. Mom told me you run a big company." "That doesn't mean I'm not scared. Success doesn't make fear go away. It just changes what you're afraid of." Natalie was watching him with an unreadable expression. They ate dinner, and Dominic marveled at how normal it felt. How right. This was what he'd thrown away, not the fancy restaurants and expensive wine. This, spaghetti at a small table with his family. His family. After dinner, Oliver wanted to show Dominic his room. It was small, but filled with personality. Posters of planets and rockets covered the walls. Books about space were stacked on every surface. A model of the solar system hung from the ceiling. "I made that in school," Oliver said proudly, pointing to the solar system. "It took me 3 weeks." "It's incredible. You got all the proportions right." "Well, not exactly right. If I did it exactly right, the sun would be huge and the planets would be tiny. But I did the order right and the colors." "That's very scientific of you," Oliver beamed. Then his expression turned serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you and Mom get divorced?" Dominic sat down on Oliver's bed. This was the question he'd been dreading. "That's complicated." "I'm smart. I can understand complicated." "I know you are." Dominic chose his words carefully. "Your mom and I loved each other very much, but I was working all the time and I wasn't being a good husband. I thought the best thing to do was to let her go so she could be happy." "Was she happy after you left?" "I don't know. You'd have to ask her." "I don't think she was," Oliver said quietly. "Sometimes I hear her crying at night. She thinks I'm asleep, but I hear her." Dominic's heart broke. "I'm sorry." "It's not your fault. You didn't know about me, right? That's what Mom said." "That's right. I didn't know. But if I had known, I would have been there. I promise you that." "Do you wish you'd known?" "More than anything in the world." Oliver nodded, satisfied. "Do you want to see my diabetes supplies? I have a whole kit." The change of subject was abrupt, but Dominic followed Oliver's lead. The boy pulled out a small backpack filled with medical supplies, glucose tablets, a glucagon emergency kit, extra pump supplies, ketone strips, a blood sugar meter. "I have to take this everywhere," Oliver explained, "to school, to friends' houses, everywhere, in case my blood sugar goes wrong." "That's a lot of responsibility." "Yeah, sometimes I wish I could just be normal, like the other kids." "You are normal. You just have something extra to deal with." "That's what Mom says. But it doesn't always feel that way." Oliver's voice was small. "The other kids can eat whatever they want. They don't have to stop playing to check their blood sugar. They don't have to go to the nurse's office every day. That must be really hard." "Sometimes. But Mom says I'm stronger because of it, that I can do hard things." "She's right. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Oliver looked up at him with those intelligent eyes. "Really? Really? You deal with something every single day that most adults couldn't handle. That takes incredible strength." Oliver smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Thanks, Dominic." When they returned to the living room, Natalie was cleaning up the kitchen. Dominic helped her wash dishes while Oliver played on his tablet. "He asked me about the divorce," Dominic said quietly. Natalie's hands stilled in the soapy water. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that I wasn't being a good husband, that I thought leaving was the right thing to do, that I didn't know about him." "How did he react?" "He said he doesn't think you were happy after I left, that he hears you crying at night." Natalie closed her eyes. "I try to be quiet." "Natalie, don't. I don't need your pity." "It's not pity. It's regret. It's wishing I could go back and make different choices. But you can't. None of us can." They finished the dishes in silence. When the kitchen was clean, Natalie checked Oliver's blood sugar, 120, a good number. "Time for bed, buddy," she said. "Already?" "But Dominic just got here." "Dominic will come back, right?" She looked at him. "Absolutely. Whenever you want." "Tomorrow?" Oliver asked hopefully. Natalie hesitated. "Let's not overwhelm Dominic. He has his own life." "Actually," Dominic said, "I'm free tomorrow, if you don't mind." "Can we go to the Science Museum?" Oliver bounced with excitement. "They have a new Mars exhibit." "That sounds perfect." After Oliver went to bed, Natalie and Dominic sat in the living room. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "You don't have to do this," Natalie said. "Come back every day. Rearrange your life. I know you're busy." I want to. I've spent 7 years being busy. It didn't make me happy. And you think playing dad for a few weeks will? The words stung, but Dominic understood her skepticism. I don't know. But I know that the last few days, getting to know Oliver, have been the best days I've had in years. He's getting attached to you. If you're going to leave, do it now, before he gets hurt. I'm not going to leave. You don't know that. What happens when the novelty wears off, when you remember how demanding your job is, when being a parent stops being fun and starts being work? Then I'll still be here. Natalie, I know I don't deserve your trust. I know I have to earn it, but I'm not going anywhere. She studied him for a long moment. We need to tell him, soon. He's asking questions. He's smart enough to figure it out on his own, and I don't want him to feel lied to. When? I don't know. I'm terrified of how he'll react. He'll be okay. He's strong. You raised him to be strong. What if he hates you? What if he hates me for not telling him sooner? Then we'll deal with it. Together. Natalie laughed bitterly. Together. That's a word I haven't used in a long time. Maybe it's time to start. She didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. The next day, Dominic picked them up at 10 a.m. He'd barely slept, too excited about spending the day with Oliver, with his son. The Science Museum was crowded with families. Children ran between exhibits, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Dominic watched other fathers with their kids, feeling a pang of envy. They made it look so easy, so natural. Oliver dragged them straight to the Mars exhibit. He read every placard, asked a million questions. His enthusiasm was infectious. Did you know that a day on Mars is almost the same length as a day on Earth? Oliver was saying. 24 hours and 39 minutes, but a year on Mars is 687 Earth days. I did not know that, Dominic said. You're like a walking encyclopedia. I just really like space. Mom says I should be an astronaut or a scientist. You could be both. Lots of astronauts are scientists. Really? That would be so cool. They spent 3 hours at the museum. Dominic bought Oliver a book about Mars rovers from the gift shop. Natalie protested that it was too expensive, but Dominic waved her off. Let me do this, please. She relented, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. She wasn't comfortable with him spending money on Oliver. He'd have to be more careful, more subtle. They had lunch at a small cafe near the museum. Oliver ordered a grilled cheese sandwich, and Natalie went through the familiar routine of calculating carbs and programming his insulin pump. Does he have to do this for the rest of his life? Dominic asked quietly while Oliver was in the bathroom. Unless they find a cure, but yes, probably. That's a lot. It is, but we manage. We don't have a choice. You do have a choice now. Let me help. Let me learn how to do the calculations, how to manage his pump, how to handle emergencies. Natalie looked at him. Why? Because he's my son, and because you shouldn't have to do this alone anymore. I've been doing it alone for 3 years. I'm used to it. That doesn't mean you should have to keep doing it. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll teach you. But Dominic, this isn't something you can learn in a day. It takes time, practice. Mistakes can be dangerous. I understand. I'll be careful. I'll learn. When Oliver returned, they finished lunch and walked through a nearby park. It was a beautiful autumn day. The leaves were turning gold and red. Families were everywhere, enjoying the weather. Oliver ran ahead, pointing out squirrels and interesting trees. Dominic and Natalie walked side by side, maintaining a careful distance. He's happy, Natalie said. I haven't seen him this happy in a long time. He's a great kid. You did an amazing job raising him. I did my best. Some days I feel like it's not enough. It's more than enough. He's smart, kind, curious, brave. That's all you. He asks about his father sometimes. Asked, I mean. Past tense. He stopped asking a couple years ago. What did you tell him? That his father wasn't able to be part of our lives. That it wasn't his fault. That he was loved and wanted. Natalie's voice cracked. I tried to protect him from feeling rejected. You did protect him. You gave him stability and love. That's everything. But I also kept him from knowing his father. What if that was wrong? What if I should have tried harder to find you? You did try. I was the one who didn't answer. This is on me, not you. They walked in silence for a while, watching Oliver explore. I think we should tell him this weekend, Natalie said suddenly. Before he gets more attached to you as just Mom's friend, he deserves to know the truth. Dominic's stomach dropped. Okay, how do you want to do it? Tomorrow, Sunday morning. We'll sit him down and tell him together. What if he hates me? Then you'll have to earn his forgiveness, just like you're earning mine. Am I? Earning your forgiveness? Natalie looked at him. I don't know yet. Ask me in a few months. That evening, Dominic drove them home. Oliver fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day. Dominic carried him upstairs, marveling at how light he was, how small. This was his son, his child. The weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. He laid Oliver on his bed, and Natalie removed his shoes and covered him with a blanket. She checked his blood sugar. 140. Good. In the living room, Natalie poured them both tea. Thank you for today. He had a wonderful time. So did I. Best day I've had in years. You keep saying that. Because it's true. My life has been empty, Natalie. I didn't realize how empty until I met Oliver. What about your company, your empire? It's just a company, just money. It doesn't mean anything. It meant enough 7 years ago. I was an idiot 7 years ago. Yes, you were. But there was no heat in her words. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking tea. It felt almost normal, almost like they were a family. I'm scared, Natalie admitted, about telling him tomorrow. Me too. What if this ruins everything? What if he can't handle it? He's stronger than you think, stronger than both of us. I hope you're right. Dominic left around 9, promising to return the next morning. He drove home slowly, dreading and anticipating tomorrow in equal measure. Sunday morning arrived too quickly. Dominic showed up at Natalie's apartment at 10 a.m., his heart pounding. This was it, the moment that would change everything. Oliver was eating breakfast when he arrived. Pancakes. Natalie was calculating the carbs. Dominic, Oliver grinned. Are we going somewhere today? Actually, buddy, we need to talk to you about something first, Natalie said. Her voice was steady, but Dominic could see her hands shaking. Am I in trouble? No, sweetheart, nothing like that. Come sit on the couch with us. Oliver looked between them, confused but compliant. They sat together, Oliver in the middle. Dominic's heart was racing so fast he thought it might explode. Oliver, Natalie began, you know how you've asked about your father before? Oliver nodded slowly. You said he wasn't able to be part of our lives. That's right, and that was true. But things have changed. Natalie took a deep breath. Dominic isn't just my old friend. He's your father. The silence that followed was deafening. Oliver looked at Dominic. Then at Natalie. Then back at Dominic. His face was a mixture of confusion and disbelief. What? His voice was small. I'm your father, Dominic said gently. I didn't know about you until a few days ago when I saw your mom at the hospital. But it's true. You're my son. Why didn't you tell me before? Oliver's eyes were filling with tears. Because I wanted you to get to know Dominic first, Natalie said. I wanted you to see that he's a good person before we told you. But you lied to me. You both lied. We didn't lie, sweetheart. We just didn't tell you everything right away. That's the same thing, Oliver's voice rose. You said my father wasn't able to be part of our lives. But he's been here. He's been here the whole time and you didn't tell me. I know you're upset, Dominic started. I'm not upset. I'm mad. Oliver stood up, tears streaming down his face. Why weren't you there? Why didn't you want me? The question hit Dominic like a physical blow. I didn't know you existed. If I had known, I would have been there. I swear to you, Oliver, I would have been there. But you left Mom. You left her. And then I was born, and you weren't there. You weren't there when I was a baby. You weren't there when I started school. You weren't there when I got diabetes. You weren't there for anything. Each accusation was true. Each one deserved. You're right, Dominic said, his own voice breaking. I wasn't there. And I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake when I left your mom. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. I was a coward, and I ran away, and I missed everything. I missed you. Did you not want me? Oliver's voice was barely a whisper now. I didn't know about you, but now that I do, I want to be your dad more than anything in the world. How do I know you won't leave again? It was the question Dominic had been asking himself, the question he didn't have a perfect answer for. "You don't know," he said honestly. "I can't prove it to you with words. I can only prove it by showing up every day for as long as you'll let me. I know I missed 8 years. I can't get those back. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Oliver was crying harder now. "Do you love me?" "I'm learning to, and I already know you're the best thing I never knew I had." Oliver stood there, tears streaming down his face, looking between his mother and the father he'd just discovered. Then he turned and ran to his room, slamming the door behind him. Natalie moved to follow, but Dominic stopped her. "Let me, please." She hesitated, then nodded. Dominic walked to Oliver's door and knocked softly. "Oliver, can I come in?" "Go away." "I will if you really want me to, but I'd like to talk to you first." Silence. Then, "Fine." Dominic entered. Oliver was on his bed, face buried in his pillow. Dominic sat on the edge of the bed, careful to maintain some distance. "I know you're angry. You have every right to be." "I'm not angry. I'm sad." Oliver's voice was muffled by the pillow. "Sad is okay too. This is a lot to process. All the other kids have dads. I thought I was the only one who didn't. And now I find out I do have a dad, but he just wasn't here." "I know. And I'm so sorry." Oliver sat up, his face red and blotchy from crying. "What if you leave again? What if you decide you don't want to be my dad anymore?" "That's not going to happen." "But how do I know?" Dominic thought carefully. "You don't. Not yet, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to be here for your next doctor's appointment, for your next school event, for your next birthday. I'm going to learn how to manage your diabetes so I can help your mom. I'm going to be here, Oliver, every day until you believe me. Promise." "I promise." Oliver wiped his eyes. "Can I still call you Dominic?" "Dad feels weird." "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with." "Okay." Oliver was quiet for a moment. "Do you really want to learn about my diabetes?" "I really do. It's kind of boring, lots of numbers and calculations." "I like numbers. I work with numbers every day." "Really?" "Really. In fact, I bet I could build a spreadsheet to help track your blood sugar patterns. Would that be helpful?" Oliver's eyes lit up slightly. "That would be cool. Mom keeps everything in a notebook, but sometimes it's hard to see the patterns." "Then that's what we'll do. You and me will build it together." "Okay." Oliver's voice was still small, but some of the anger had faded. "Can I ask you something?" Dominic said. "I guess." "What's your favorite thing about space?" Oliver looked surprised by the question. "I don't know. All of it, I guess. But I really like thinking about how big the universe is, how there are billions of galaxies and billions of stars and billions of planets. It makes my problems seem smaller." "That's very wise." "When I'm having a bad diabetes day, sometimes I look at pictures of space. It helps me remember that I'm just one small person on one small planet. And if the universe is that big, then maybe my problems aren't as big as they feel." Dominic's throat tightened. "You're an amazing kid. You know that?" Oliver shrugged. "Mom says that. But I don't always feel amazing. Sometimes I just feel tired." "Being amazing doesn't mean you're not tired. It means you keep going even when you are." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Oliver spoke again. "Can we still go places? Like the museum?" "Of course. Whenever you want." "And you'll come to my school science fair. It's in 3 weeks." "I'll be there, front row." "Okay." Oliver took a shaky breath. "I'm still mad and sad. But I'm glad you're here now. I'm glad I'm here too." They emerged from the bedroom to find Natalie pacing in the living room. She looked up anxiously. "We're okay," Dominic said. "We talked." "I'm still processing," Oliver added. "But we're okay." Natalie pulled Oliver into a hug. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have told you sooner." "It's okay, Mom. I understand why you waited." The rest of the day was quiet. They ordered pizza for lunch, and Dominic watched as Natalie taught him how to calculate the carbs in pizza. It was more complicated than he'd expected. The crust, the sauce, the cheese, the toppings, everything had to be accounted for. This is a lot, he admitted. You get used to it, Natalie said. After a while, it becomes second nature. How long did it take you? A few months, but I had to learn fast. Oliver's life depended on it. The weight of that responsibility was staggering. That evening, as Dominic was preparing to leave, Oliver stopped him. Dominic, can you come to my next doctor's appointment? It's on Wednesday. Dominic looked at Natalie, who nodded. I'd love to. What time? 3 p.m. at the Pediatric Endocrinology Clinic. I'll be there. After Oliver went to bed, Natalie walked Dominic to the door. Thank you, she said, for how you handled that, for being honest with him. He's an incredible kid. He is, and he's hurting right now. This is going to take time. I know, I'm prepared for that. Are you? Because it's not going to be easy. He's going to have good days and bad days, days when he's angry at you, days when he doesn't want you around. I'll be here for all of them, good and bad. Natalie studied him. I think I'm starting to believe you. Good. That's a start. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Dominic showed up for Oliver's doctor's appointment, where he met Dr. Patel, the pediatric endocrinologist who'd been managing Oliver's care. He asked questions, took notes, learned about A1C levels and time and range percentages. He attended Oliver's school science fair, where Oliver presented a project on the possibility of water on Mars. He stood in the back, watching his son explain complex scientific concepts to judges, and felt pride so intense it was almost painful. He came to dinner twice a week. He learned to calculate carbs. He learned to recognize the signs of low blood sugar. He learned that Oliver got cranky when his numbers were high and shaky when they were low. He built the spreadsheet he'd promised, and Oliver loved it. They spent hours entering data and analyzing patterns. It was time together, time Dominic treasured. But it wasn't all smooth. There were hard moments, too. 3 weeks after the revelation, Oliver had a bad low in the middle of the night. Natalie called Dominic at 2 a.m., her voice panicked. I need you. Oliver's blood sugar is dropping and the glucose isn't working fast enough. I'm scared. Dominic was out the door in minutes. He arrived to find Natalie on the floor with Oliver, who was pale and barely conscious. His hands were shaking. His speech was slurred. How much glucose have you given him? Dominic asked, forcing himself to stay calm. 2 doses, 30 grams, but he's still at 52. Okay, let's give him juice, small sips. They worked together, getting juice into Oliver, checking his blood sugar every 5 minutes, waiting, praying. After 20 agonizing minutes, his blood sugar started to rise, 60, 70, 80. Oliver's eyes focused. His shaking stopped. Mom? His voice was weak. I'm here, baby. You're okay. You had a bad low, but you're okay now. Oliver noticed Dominic. You came. Of course I came. Your mom called and I came. In the middle of the night? Any time, day or night, whenever you need me. After Oliver was stable and back in bed, Natalie collapsed on the couch. She was shaking. Dominic sat beside her. This is what it's like, she said. This terror, this constant vigilance, this is my life. It's our life now. You're not alone anymore. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I was so scared. I thought I was going to lose him. But you didn't. You knew what to do. You saved him. We saved him. You helped. It was the first time she'd acknowledged them as a team. The incident changed something between them. Natalie started calling Dominic more, asking for help, letting him be part of Oliver's care in real, meaningful ways. He learned to do site changes for Oliver's insulin pump. The first time, his hands shook so badly he could barely insert the cannula. But Oliver was patient with him. It's okay if you're nervous. Mom was nervous the first time too. I don't want to hurt you. It only hurts for a second, and then it's done. Dominic completed the site change, and Oliver gave him a thumbs up. Good job, Dad. It was the first time Oliver had called him Dad. Dominic's eyes filled with tears. What did you call me? Oliver looked embarrassed. Dad. Is that okay? I've been thinking about it, and you've been showing up, like you promised, so I thought maybe I could try calling you Dad. That's more than okay. That's everything. At work, things were changing too. Dominic started leaving at 5 p.m. He declined evening meetings. He worked from home when Oliver had doctor's appointments, his board noticed. "Dominic, we need to talk about your recent absences," the chairman said during a meeting. "You've missed 3 board dinners and declined 2 international trips." "I have family obligations." "Family obligations? You don't have a family." "Actually, I do. I have a son, and he needs me." The room went silent. "A son? Since when?" "Since 8 years ago. I just found out about him recently." "And you're letting this disrupt your work?" Dominic looked around the table at these men who'd been his colleagues for years, men who measured success in dollars and market share, men who'd never understand what he'd discovered. "Yes, I'm letting this disrupt my work. Because my son is more important than any deal or any meeting. If that's a problem, I'll step down as CEO. Dominic, let's not be hasty." "I'm not being hasty. I'm being clear. My priorities have changed. My family comes first. If the board can't accept that, then we need to discuss my future with this company." The chairman looked uncomfortable. "We'll table this discussion for now, but Dominic, we need you focused." "I am focused, just on different things." After the meeting, his CFO pulled him aside. "Are you serious about stepping down?" "If it comes to that, yes. You've spent 20 years building this company, and I spent 8 years missing my son's life. I'm not missing any more." Word spread through the company. Dominic Castellano, the workaholic CEO, was prioritizing his family. Some people were supportive. Others were skeptical. Dominic didn't care. For Oliver's 9th birthday, Dominic planned something special. He rented a planetarium for a private showing. He invited Oliver's entire class. He arranged for an astronomer to give a presentation about Mars. Oliver was speechless when he arrived. "You did this? For me?" "Of course, you only turned 9 once." The party was a huge success. Oliver's friends were impressed, his teachers were grateful, and Oliver was happy, genuinely, radiantly happy. At the end of the night, as they were cleaning up, Oliver hugged Dominic. "This was the best birthday ever. Thank you, Dad." "You're welcome, buddy. I'm glad you had fun." "I did. And Dad? I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're my dad." Dominic held his son, feeling complete in a way he'd never felt before. "I'm glad too. Being your dad is the best thing that's ever happened to me." Natalie watched them from across the room, and Dominic saw something in her expression. Not quite forgiveness, not quite love, but something softer than the anger that had been there before. Later, after Oliver was asleep, Natalie and Dominic sat on her apartment balcony. It was a small space, barely big enough for 2 chairs, but the view of the city was nice. "You didn't have to do all that," Natalie said. "The planetarium, the astronomer, it was too much." "It wasn't too much. It was exactly right. Did you see his face?" "I did. He was so happy." She paused. "You're good at this, being a dad." "I'm learning. I have a good teacher." "Me. You. You've shown me what it means to put your child first, to sacrifice for them, to love them unconditionally." "I didn't have a choice." "You did. You could have given up. You could have been bitter. Instead, you raised an incredible kid. You should be proud." "I am proud. Of him, not necessarily of myself." "Why not?" "Because I kept him from you. Because I let my hurt and anger make decisions that affected his life. You protected him. There's no shame in that." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the city sounds below. "Dominic, can I ask you something?" "Anything. What happens now? With us?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, we're co-parenting. We're in each other's lives. But what are we to each other?" Dominic considered the question carefully. "I don't know. What do you want us to be?" "I don't know either. I'm not ready to forgive you completely. I'm not ready to forget what happened. I'm not asking you to. But I also can't deny that you've shown up, that you've been there for Oliver, that you've changed. I have changed. You and Oliver changed me. People don't change that fast. They do when they have a reason to. You and Oliver are my reason." Natalie looked at him. "I don't know if I can trust you. Not completely. Not yet." That's fair. I'll keep earning it. What if you never do? What if I can never fully trust you again? Then we'll figure it out. We'll co-parent, we'll be friends, whatever works for Oliver. And if I want more than that? Someday? Dominic's heart skipped. Then I'll be here, waiting for as long as it takes. That's not fair to you. It's exactly fair. I'm the one who left. I'm the one who has to prove myself. I'm willing to do that. Natalie was quiet for a long moment. Okay, we'll take it slow. We'll see what happens. That's all I'm asking for. 6 months after their reunion, Dominic got a call that changed everything. Oliver had collapsed at school. His blood sugar had dropped to 30. The school nurse had administered glucagon, but he wasn't responding as quickly as he should. Dominic left a board meeting mid-sentence. He called Natalie from the car. "I'm on my way to the hospital," she said, her voice tight with panic. "They're taking him to St. Catherine's. I'll meet you there." St. Catherine's, the hospital where this had all started, where Dominic had seen Natalie for the first time in 7 years, where he'd discovered he had a son. He arrived before the ambulance. He paced the emergency room, remembering the last time he'd been here, how different everything had been, how much had changed. The ambulance arrived and Dominic rushed to meet it. Oliver was conscious but groggy. Natalie was beside him, holding his hand. "Dad," Oliver said weakly when he saw Dominic. "I'm here, buddy. I'm right here." They rushed Oliver inside. The doctors ran tests. His blood sugar was stabilizing, but they wanted to keep him for observation. In the hospital room, Natalie finally broke down. "I can't do this anymore. I can't live in constant fear that I'm going to lose him." Dominic held her while she cried. "You're not going to lose him. He's strong. He's a fighter." "But what if next time is different? What if next time the glucagon doesn't work? What if I'm not there? Then I'll be there, or a teacher will be there, or a friend." Oliver has a whole team of people who love him and know how to help him. It's not enough. It's never enough. I know, but it's what we have. And we'll keep fighting, every day, together. Natalie pulled back, looking at him. Together. Together. You're not alone anymore, Natalie. You have me, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. I know I broke those vows once, but I'm making them again now. I'm here. I'm not leaving. She searched his face. I believe you. I finally believe you. Good, because it's true. Oliver recovered quickly. Within a few hours, he was sitting up and complaining about the hospital food. Dominic went to get him something from the cafeteria, leaving Natalie alone with their son. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, baby." "Are you and Dad going to get back together?" Natalie was taken aback. "Why do you ask?" "Because you look at each other differently now, like you used to look at each other in the old pictures." "What old pictures?" "The ones in your closet, from when you were married. I found them a long time ago." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "You never told me you found those." "I didn't want to make you sad, but I used to look at them and wonder what it would be like if Dad was around, and now he is. And you both seem happier. We are happier. Your dad being in our lives has been good for all of us. So are you going to get back together?" "I don't know, sweetheart. It's complicated." "Adults always say that. But it doesn't seem complicated to me. You love each other. He loves us. We love him. Why can't we be a family?" "We are a family. Just maybe not in the traditional way. But wouldn't it be better if we all lived together? If Dad was there every morning and every night?" "Maybe. But your dad and I hurt each other a long time ago. Sometimes that kind of hurt takes a long time to heal. But it is healing, right?" Natalie smiled through her tears. "Yes, baby. It's healing." When Dominic returned with food, he found Natalie and Oliver talking quietly. They both looked up when he entered. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything's perfect," Oliver said. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you love Mom?" Dominic froze. He looked at Natalie, who looked equally surprised. "Oliver, that's not—" Natalie started. "I do," Dominic interrupted. "I never stopped loving her. Even when I left, even when I was trying to convince myself I'd done the right thing. I loved her." "Then why don't you tell her?" "Because I'm not sure she's ready to hear it." Oliver looked at his mother. "Are you ready, Mom?" Natalie laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and tears. You're too smart for your own good, you know that? That's what my teachers say. So are you ready? She looked at Dominic, really looked at him. I don't know, maybe. Ask me again in a few months. I can do that, Dominic said softly. Oliver grinned. Good, because I think we should all live together, like a real family. We are a real family, Natalie said, no matter where we live. I know, but it would be cooler if we all lived in the same place. After Oliver was discharged, life continued its new rhythm. Dominic was at the apartment 4 or 5 times a week. He'd learned to manage Oliver's diabetes as well as Natalie. He knew the signs of highs and lows. He could calculate carbs in his sleep. He'd become a true partner in Oliver's care. And somewhere along the way, he and Natalie had become partners in more than just parenting. It started small. A hand on her shoulder when she was stressed, a shared look over Oliver's head. Conversations that lasted long after Oliver went to bed. Then, one night, 3 months after Oliver's question in the hospital, Natalie kissed him. They were on her balcony, talking about Oliver's upcoming school trip. Dominic was worried about sending him away for 3 days. Natalie was assuring him that the teachers were trained in diabetes management. You have to let him be independent, she was saying. He can't live in a bubble. I know, I just worry. Welcome to parenthood. The worry never stops. How do you handle it? I don't. I just live with it. They were standing close, closer than they usually stood. Natalie looked up at him and something in her expression had changed. Dominic, ask me again. Ask you what? If I'm ready. His heart stopped. Are you ready? I think so. I think I've forgiven you. I think I want to try again. Are you sure? Because I don't want to rush you. I don't want to push. You're not pushing. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Again. He kissed her then, soft and gentle and full of 7 years of longing. She kissed him back, and it felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, both were crying. I love you, Dominic said. I never stopped. I never will. I love you too. I tried not to. I tried to hate you, but I couldn't. What do we do now? We take it slow. We date. We figure out if we can really make this work. And Oliver? We tell him we're trying, that we're seeing if we can be together again. He'll be thrilled. Oliver was indeed thrilled. When they told him the next morning, he literally jumped up and down. Does this mean Dad's moving in? Not yet, Natalie said. We're taking things slow. How slow? As slow as we need to. But eventually he'll move in, right? And we'll be a real family? We're already a real family, Dominic said. But yes, eventually, if things work out, I'd like to live with you and your mom. Yes, Oliver pumped his fist. This is the best day ever. Over the next few months, Dominic and Natalie dated. Real dates, dinner, movies, long walks. They talked about everything. The past, the present, the future. They went to therapy together, working through the hurt and betrayal. It wasn't always easy. There were arguments, moments when old wounds reopened, times when Natalie doubted whether she could really trust him again. But Dominic showed up, every time. He proved over and over that he wasn't going anywhere. A year after their reunion at the hospital, Dominic proposed, not with a grand gesture or an expensive ring, just the two of them on Natalie's balcony, the place where they'd rebuilt their relationship. Marry me, he said, again. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of you and Oliver. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You already have. Is that a yes? That's a yes. They were married 3 months later, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Oliver was the ring bearer. He took his job very seriously. During the vows, Dominic added something that wasn't in the traditional script. I promise to love you and Oliver with everything I have. I promise to show up every day, no matter what. I promise to be the husband and father I should have been from the beginning. I promise to never take this second chance for granted. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. After the wedding, they moved into a new house, not Dominic's penthouse, not Natalie's small apartment, a real home with a yard and a room for Oliver that they decorated with stars and planets. Oliver's diabetes continued to be a daily challenge, but now they faced it as a team. All 3 of them. 1 year later, almost to the day of their reunion at St. Catherine's Hospital, They returned for the opening of the Castellano Research Wing. The $50 million donation had been completed. The building was beautiful. State-of-the-art research facilities dedicated to finding better treatments and, hopefully, a cure for diseases like type 1 diabetes. Dominic stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd. Natalie and Oliver sat in the front row. A year ago, I came to this hospital to make a donation. I thought I was here to cement my legacy, to assuage my guilt, to feel like I'd done something meaningful with my wealth. But what actually happened was much more important. I found my family. I found my son. I found my purpose. This research wing isn't about my legacy anymore. It's about Oliver's future. It's about every child fighting a chronic illness. It's about the families who live with constant vigilance and fear. I spent years building an empire and thinking that was success. But real success is measured in bedtime stories, in middle-of-the-night blood sugar checks, in school science fairs and birthday parties, in showing up every day for the people you love. I almost missed all of that. I almost let fear and pride rob me of the most important things in life. But I got a second chance, and I'm not wasting it. He looked directly at Natalie and Oliver. Thank you for giving me that chance. Thank you for letting me be part of your lives. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. The crowd applauded, but Dominic only cared about two people: his wife, his son, his family. After the ceremony, they walked through the hospital together, past the emergency room where Oliver had been brought that first night, past the pediatric wing where Dominic had first learned he was a father, past the conference room where he'd been signing papers while his whole world was changing 4 floors below. "It's strange being back here," Natalie said. "Good strange or bad strange?" "Good. This is where everything changed, where we got our second chance." Oliver was reading the plaques on the wall, learning about the research that would be conducted in the new wing. "Dad, do you think they'll find a cure? For diabetes?" "I hope so, buddy. That's what this whole building is for. But even if they don't, it's okay, because I have you and Mom, and we can handle anything together." Dominic pulled his son into a hug. "Yes, we can. We can handle anything together." As they left the hospital, Dominic looked back at the building. St. Catherine's, the place where his life had fallen apart and come back together. Where he'd lost everything and found everything. He took Natalie's hand. She squeezed back. They walked to the car together, a family, imperfect, complicated, but real. And for Dominic, that was more valuable than any empire he could have built. The end moral of the story. Success isn't measured in wealth or power, but in the relationships we nurture and the love we give. It's never too late to choose what truly matters. Second chances are possible, but they require consistent effort, humility, and the courage to prioritize family over everything else. The greatest legacy we can leave isn't in buildings or businesses, but in the lives we touch and the love we share. Sometimes the crisis that breaks us open is exactly what we need to find our way back to what matters most. And sometimes, the most important meeting of your life happens in a hospital hallway when you least expect it.